This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So in last session, what we discussed? So in last session, we discussed about a Force.com platform overview. Right? What exactly the Force.com platform? So what we can do exactly from the Force.com platform? So what are the various features provided by the Force.com platform we discussed? Right. So now today, so what are the two programmatic language we are having? What are the two programmatic languages so we are having? So how many programmatic languages we are having in our Salesforce? So one is what? Apex. One is Apex programming, and coming to the second one is what? Second one is what? Visual Force. A Visual Force program. First one is what? Apex programming, and second one is what? A Visual Force program. Okay. So now today we'll see what is Apex programming, what kind of features they offer to us, right? So what is this Apex programming language? Okay, so how can you write the language, this Apex language? How to build a custom code, right? How to perform the operations in our Salesforce object. Practically, we'll see today. Practically, we'll see today. Okay. In last session, we discussed one example. In last session, we discussed one example. Okay, in any application, we're having how many layers? How many layers? 3 layers, right? So database layer. Okay, next one is what? Front end. Next one is what? Business logic. Front end and business logic. So why we are moving to this programmatic language? See, so this is front end, means what? This UI. Okay, so we got from Salesforce administration, right? In declarative model. Got it in declarative model. So we got this form, right? Okay, so business logic already they pre-built. Okay, so business logic already they pre-built, right? So database already Salesforce provide our to our us ORM technology. Am I right? Already they provide ORM technology. So why we are writing this code? Then why we are writing this code? Why we are writing this code? Got my point? Got my point. So let's see practically also. Let's see practically. I will explain. First, we need to log into our Salesforce. See, for example, you can go here, a standard object, sales, sales, sales application is there. See here, we're having contacts. We're having what? Contact. Okay, I'm creating one contact. I'm creating one contact. So with the name of Pratish, I'm creating a contact with the name of Pratish, right? So last name is Pratish. Okay, so I'm providing only last name. Don't worry. So I think here there is no mandatory fields. Just click here save. Just click here save. Done. Okay, so one record saved, one contact saved, right? So whenever you click here plus button or new button, whenever you click here new button, you are getting this form, right? This is called the what? This is called the what? Front end. Front end, right? So whenever you click here save button, whenever you click here save button, this information was stored somewhere. Where? In my database. In my database. So here we are storing that value. So whenever I click here save button here in this front end, the information will be stored on database through the business logic, through the business logic, right? So what kind of business logic they given by defaultly? For example, see, so here I'm not entering anything. So when you click here, automatically this information will be reaches to the what controller. So controller will check, okay, boss, you didn't enter the last name. Why? Because this is the mandatory. See here, I got one error. You must enter a value. You must enter a value. You got it? I got it. See, whenever I click here save button, okay, so blindly it's not going to the database. Okay, so before that we are having that is controller, that is called the business logic, right? So here controller in declarative model. So what we define. So first you need to provide what was the mandatory fields. First you need to provide what was the mandatory fields. Okay, so I provided a mandatory field, Shiva. Okay, for example, then come here mail ID. I'm entering something like this, like this. Okay, so when you click here save button, what happened? Once again it shows error. Why? Because this is a invalid format. This is a invalid format, right? This is a invalid format. Got it? This is a invalid format. Okay, so these are the default structure. These are the default validations provided by the Salesforce. For example, I want a complex logic. Complex logic means what? Complex logic means what? For example, let's see. So here I already saved one a record, that is Pratish record. For example, if I say once again Pratish record, what happened? The contact in contact object. Okay, if I created one more record with the name of Pratish, what happened? The record was saved or not? The record was saved or not? Let's see. Let's see. Okay, so here I'm providing Pratish. Pratish. Got it. Let's we can remove this one. It's not a mandatory. Then click here save button. Then click here save button. So what happened? Obviously, I saved two contacts with the same name, right? Okay, I saved two contacts with the same name. See here, two contacts with the same name, Pratish and Pratish, right? Why? Because so what was the default front end what we are having? So that front end don't have that much of intelligence. Okay, so to go to our database and just you can find out what was the record we are already having or not. Okay, it will get back that information, right? So why? Because this type of functionality, so we didn't define by defaultly. Okay, this type of functionality we didn't define by default. So if you want to get this type of functionality, if you want to get this type of functionality, no need to allow the duplication. No need to allow the duplication. Then what happened? Obviously, you need to write the program. Obviously, you need to write the program. And one more example. And one more example. So here we are having a leads is there. So whenever I converted leads, automatically accounts, contacts, and opportunities. In these three objects, I created one record. Okay, if you want to get this type of functionalities also, we can use programmatically. We need to programmatically. Got my point? So why? Because so here this front end, okay, this front end don't have that much of intelligence to go to database. So whether you already having, okay, you already having that file or not, right? So that's the reason in mediator. So just we are writing Apex programming. We are writing what? Apex programming. We are writing Apex programming. Got my point? Got my point. So what was the complex logics you want to define? What was the complex logics you want to define? Okay, if you want to define that complex logic, obviously you need to write the Apex programming language. Got it? What is the meaning of Apex? Apex? Advanced Programming Experience. Okay, what's the full form of Apex? Advanced Programming Experience. Okay, so today we'll see about this Apex programming language. So after completion of this Apex, we will move to the Visual Force now. So that time we'll see about this Visual Force. So that time we'll see about this Visual Force. Right, done. The Apex programming language is a what? World first, world first cloud-based programming language. World first what? Cloud-based programming language. Right? Apex programming language is the world first cloud-based cloud-based and object-oriented a programming language. Right? Okay, you are installing anything? No, you are installing nothing. Right? So simply by using browser and internet, so we are accessing our Salesforce platform. We already seen yesterday. Right? Okay, so how can I access my this programming language? The same way. The same way you can access by using a browser and internet connection. Everything on browser only. So that's why this is the world first cloud-based programming language. You're writing the code on cloud only, right? So this is the first object-oriented programming language. Object-oriented programming language, right? Okay. Then coming to the second point. So each business logic, okay. So each business logic should be implemented in terms of what? Classes and objects. Okay, so each business logic, okay, it should be implemented in terms of what? Classes and object. So what is this class and objects? We'll see in depth the later sessions, but don't worry. Okay, so each business logic, what was the business logic you are writing here? That business logic should be, okay, so will be in the format of classes and objects. Okay, so in terms of classes and object, right? For example, so here I'm getting one issue, duplication issue. Okay, you are writing on a program. You are writing one program. Okay, so that program in terms of Apex language, right? Okay, so that should be stored in the model of the classes. Got one point. Okay, so each business logic should be implemented implemented in terms of classes and objects. In terms of classes and objects. Right. Okay, so by using this programming language, so we can implement the complex validation rules, complex validation rules, and the complex transaction fold also. What is the meaning of validation? What is the meaning of validation? How many validations we can write in a single object? For object, how many validations we can write? Any answer? Hey guys, you already completed administration, right? How many validation rules? How many validation rules? See here,
Is it
we can write
is
we can write
is it
100 valid.
100?
Yes,
100?
100. Right. Good. Okay. So we can write 100 validation rules. For example, in my object. Okay. So here this object student object. In my object, I have 400 fields. I have how many fields? 400 fields. I need to write the validation for the 400 fields. Then what happened? Next. What was the solution? By using this declarative model, okay, is it possible? No, why? Because here we are having only 100 only, right? In that condition, just you can go for the development, like Apex programming. Apex programming. What's that? Okay, so by using this programming language, By using this programming language, so we can implement the complex validation rules and transactional flows, complex transaction. Got it? Okay. Then coming to the fourth point. So each statement in this programming language should be ends with semicolon. Should be ends with what? Semicolon. So what was the statement you are writing here? What was the line you are writing? So that should be ends terminated by using semicolon. By using semicolon. Okay. So each statement in the Apex language, Apex programming language should be ends with what? Ends with semicolon. Got my point? So every statement must be terminated by using a semicolon. By using semicolon. And the most important point is, so Apex is a tightly coupled. Apex is a tightly coupled, tightly coupled programming language. Tightly coupled programming language. So what is the meaning of tightly coupled? What is the meaning of tightly coupled? We are having two types of a coupled language. One is tightly and second one is what? A loosely coupled. So one is what? A tightly coupled and second one is what? A loosely coupled. Let's see what is the meaning of this a tightly coupled programming language practically. Right. For example, see, so I have two numbers, 100 and 500. 100 and 500. Right. So I want to do some operations. What are the operations? Addition. Okay. So I want to do addition, like subtraction, right? A multiplication, and division, etc. Okay. So division, etc. Got it. So here I have two values. One is what? 100 and second one is what? 500. One is what? 100 and second one is what? 500. I want to do addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Okay. For example, every time you are writing 100 plus 500, right? So 100 minus 500, it's showing output. No, it doesn't show output. It doesn't show output. Obviously, so we need to define what type of data you are entering in your inputs. What type of data, okay, what type of data you are working on it. Got my point? Got my point? Okay, what type of variables you are using? Simply, what type of variables you are using? So we are storing here 100 and 500. 100 and 500. This 100 and 500 is nothing but what? These are the integers, means numbers. We are storing numbers. We are storing what? Numbers. Right? Simply you can take integer x comma y. Integer x comma y. What? Integer x comma y. So then what happened? Then what happened? System will system will allocate some memory space for this x and y. System will allocate some memory space for this x and y. How much memory space? How much memory space? So based on the data type, based on the data type, based on the data type, based on the data type. Okay, so this is for what? X, and this is for the what? Y. Okay, I allocated two memory spaces for this X and Y. I allocated two memory locations for this X and Y. So what was the X value here I defined? So what was the X value here I defined? For example, X equals to 100, right? Next, so Y equals to 500. Got it? X equals to 100, Y equals to 500. Then what happened? So what was the X value? 100 will be stored here in this memory location. What was the Y memory value? It will be stored here in this memory location. Got it? Right? So that's the reason. So before that, obviously, you have to define the variable. So what type of variable you are storing? Okay, how much memory location I need to release for this program? Right, that should be you have to define initially only. Initially. Okay, so whenever you're writing a program, first you have to define, so what was the variables you are using in your program. So here I'm using three variables. So two are the inputs, 100 and 500. Right, so one is what for result. What was the addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division? Got it? Result. Okay, so here I'm using three variables, right? So here this is integer, this is integer, obviously. So maybe I am getting integer or decimal, right? For addition subtraction, obviously I'm getting integer only. For multiplication, so maybe we got the points. For division, obviously we are getting some points, right? So that's the reason. So then you can go for this result will be the decimal. Decimal. What was the function of the decimal? Decimal will allows the decimal points also, but whereas the integer, so integer doesn't allows the decimal points, right? No problem, tomorrow we'll see. So what are the data types we have, right? So tomorrow in depth we'll see, so what are the data types we have. Now we can see, right? See here, so what was the X value we stored here in this memory location, and what was the Y value we are storing here in this memory location? Done. So then what I am doing next, I am writing result. A result equals to, okay, so x plus y, x plus y, x plus y. So here what happened? So here what happened? We are getting error or not? We are getting error or not? Yes, we are getting error. Why? Because there is no variable we already defined here result. Yes, we are doing here operation. What was the expression that is correct? X plus y. But where you want to store? Where you want to store? So if you want to store here result, okay, so before that, obviously you need to define what is this result. What is this result? Decimal result. Decimal result, like that. So whatever the variable, whatever the inputs you want to work on with, obviously you need to define the variables. You need to define the variables. So that is called the strongly coupled. That is called the strongly coupled. For example, just you can go for a VB or a JavaScript. No need to define these variables. No need to define these variables. So directly you can write expression like this. Express y. Directly you can write it. No need to define these variables in VB or JavaScript, right? But coming to the C or Java or Salesforce means Apex language, obviously we need to define the what was the variables before its usage, before its usage, right? Got my point? What is meant by tightly coupled, right? So Apex programming language is a tightly coupled, right? And then next what? So we need to define the variables before its usage. Before its usage. Got my point? Got my point? Okay, so this is called the what? Tightly coupled programming language. Okay, so by using this Apex language, so we can build a complex already discussed the complex validation rules and complex transaction cutting. Okay, so by using this Apex language, okay, Apex programming language, okay, so we can build the custom business logic. Custom means what? We are defining everything. You already know about what is the meaning of standard and custom. Standard means what? It's provided by the Salesforce. Custom means what? We are defining everything. We are defining everything. Okay, so by using Apex programming language, okay, so build, we can build the custom logic, business logic. See, I click somewhere, I want to do something, right? So that type of logic, obviously, you need to implement by using this programming language. Why? Because that type of custom business logic is not available in our declarative model, in our administration. Got my point? So what was a custom logics? What was the custom logics we are having? So those languages not available in our admin, right? Obviously, we need to move to the development and we need to complete the task, right? Next, by using this Apex programming language, so we can perform all DML operations, right? So we can perform all DML operations, right? So what are the DML operations? What are the DML operations? What are the DML operations? Insert, right? Update, delete, upset, right? And delete. Then look at what? Yes, Shiva. So we can use this. We can create the insert. We can insert the records. We can update the records, delete the records, upset the records, and edit the records by using a page layout itself, right? Yes, we can do it. We can do it. Okay, in admin also. How many records? How many records you can create? Right. In single transaction, you can create only one record. In single transaction, you can create only one record by using admin. But coming to here in programmatic model, okay, in programmatic model, so we are writing programs, right? So we can insert bulk information, bulk information. We can update bulk information. We can delete the bulk records, right? We can do bulk operations, bulk manipulations here. Okay, so DML manipulations. Okay, the Salesforce objects. Got it. Then coming to the eighth point. Okay, so by using this Apex programming language, so we retrieve the records from the Salesforce object. Okay, so what we retrieve? We retrieve the records from the Salesforce objects, from the Salesforce object. So with the help of what? With the help of what? SOQL. With the help of what? SOQL. SOQL is nothing but what? A Salesforce Object Query Language. Okay. What's the meaning of SOQL? Salesforce Object Query Language. It's look like a SQL, right? So just we are using a simple keyword select, right? So just we are getting the information from the database, getting the information from the database, right? For example, see, so here my database, I have Pratish record. Okay, how can I get the Pratish record? How can I get the Pratish record? Simply I'm writing, okay, so select name comma ID from some accounts object. Okay, from account object. Okay, so select ID comma name from the account object. Means what? In account object, okay, what was the name? Obviously name equals to Pratish. So whatever the information you provided like that, okay, and obviously we're getting that information. Obviously we're getting what? So that information. That is called the what? SOQL. Okay, so we are retrieving the data. We are retrieving the records data. Okay, next. So we can search, we can we can search for the content. Search for the content inside the Salesforce instance. Inside the Salesforce instance. By using what? With the help of what? With the help of what? SOSL. SOSL. Okay, so this is a simple search engine. This is a simple search engine. Right. For example, I don't know where that record was available. I don't know. Okay, in declarative model also, this one is available. See here. Just you can go here in search box, just you can type it. Right, see here. So 3 records where contact, 2 records where instructor, 1 record where contact. This is user. Got it? This is search. Okay, like the same. Okay, in our programmatic language also. So we are writing one SL query. Find. We are finding the information. We are finding the information. Find. Okay, so we are finding the information. Got it? So I don't know where that information was available. Where this information was available. Where that information was available. Got it? Okay, so in that situations we can use SOSL. In that situation we can use SOSL. Got it? And next we'll see about this Apex execution architecture. Now we'll see what is Apex execution architecture. Right, then come here. Okay, so here I have a user. So here I have a user. So this is my user. This is my user. Right. Okay, so what would be this user? Okay, so this user, return some Apex code. This user returns some Apex code. Sorry, this user returns some what? Apex code. Apex code. Got it? Okay, so when we return something information, and then they obviously they're clicking on save button. They're clicking on what? A save button. They're clicking on what? Save button. So when we click here save, what happened? When we click here save, what happened? Got it? So here Apex code. Okay, so you return already Apex code. When you click here save button or execute button, what happened? What happened? Let's see practically. So how it will be executed. Let's see practically how it will be executed. Okay, so then. Hmm. Okay, so this is my Salesforce instance. Right. This is my Salesforce instance. Okay, so under this instance, I'm having what? My Salesforce platform. Right. Under this instance, I'm having my Salesforce platform. This is my platform. Right. This is my platform. Right. Under this platform, we're having two things. Okay, under this platform, we're having two things. So this is what? Salesforce instance. Instance. I think you already know about instance. Okay, we're having different types of instances there, and number of instances is there. For example, let us take this is AP1, Asian Pacific 1, Asian Pacific 1 instance, Asian Pacific 1 instance. Okay, so this instance having capability of okay, so we are having a flows.com platform also in this instance. Okay, so this is what? A force.com platform. Okay, under the instance we are having what? A force.com platform. Right, so this is my platform. This is my instance and this is my platform. Under the instance we are having platform. Okay, so here in this force.com platform, so we are having two things. We're having two things. So one is application server and second one is what? A metadata Okay, we're having second one is what? Metadata repository. Got it? Okay, under this platform, what we're having? What we're having? First one is what? This one is what? Application server. This one is what? Application server. Application server. Got it? Okay, so under the platform, we're having two things. We're having two things. So one is application server, and second one is what? A metadata a repository. So metadata a repository. A metadata a repository. Okay, so this is what? A metadata a repository. Right. Metadata a repository. Got it? Okay, what is metadata? I will tell you. Okay, so under the Salesforce instance, so we are having force.com platform. Okay, so here in this force.com platform, we're having Apex server. We're having what? Apex server. Okay, under the Apex server, so we are having what? Under the Apex server, so we are having what? So metadata repository, and next one is what? We are having Apex compiler also. Here we are having what? Apex compiler also. Apex compiler. Right, Apex compiler. Got it. Okay. So here we're having one more thing. So that is called the runtime. The runtime. Right. Now you can see. Now you can see. Okay. So whenever you click here save button. So whenever you click here save button. So what happened? What happened? Obviously this information will be reached to the Apex compiler. This information will be reached to the where Apex compiler. Okay, so this information will be reaches to the where this Apex compiler. Got it? Okay, so got it. So what happened here in this Apex compiler? What happened? What it does Apex compiler? Okay, so it will check only what was the syntax errors. Got it? In this Apex compiler, it will check what was the only syntax errors. Right? So if you're having syntax error, what it does? Okay, so it will be get back to the end user. It will be get back to the end user. See, man, you are having some compiler errors, you have to rectify it. Right? So whenever you're writing the program, and obviously you are getting some errors. Right? So how can you check that error? How can you check that error? Means what? Already this compiler. Okay, so in compiler we already define some set of the rules and regulation. Okay, so some set of the formulas, some set of the functionalities, each and everything. Okay, so this is what? This is what was the request. This is uncompiled request. Right? So this is what request? This is what request? Uncompiled. Uncompiled request. Uncompiled, just you can go for the Apex code. Okay, uncompiled Apex code. Okay, if you're having any errors, so what happened? Simply the system will send okay, system will send some errors. Okay, system will send some response. Okay, system will send some response. The response. So here what? The errors. What was the errors we're having in this code? Okay, so this is what? Errors. Right? So this is what? Just we sent one request to the application server, right? What happened is here Apex compiler, it will check what was the syntax, we return. So it will check, okay, so whether if you're having any errors, it will be get back to the end user. Okay, so boss, we are having some errors. Boss, we are having some errors. Right, right. Okay, and then after, for example, I don't have any errors. I don't have any errors. So then what we can do? Then what we can do? Just give me 1 second. See, okay. So if I don't have any errors, then what you have to do? And obviously this information, so what was the code you return, that information will be moved to the metadata repository. A metadata repository. Okay, so here what we are doing, so just we are sending that information to the metadata repository. Okay, so what's this metadata repository? Okay, the metadata repository contains all Apex classes, triggers, visual force pages, etc. So what was the things you created? What were the things you returned? Everything is available on here in this metadata repository, right? So it contains what? It contains what? All Apex, all Apex classes, right? Triggers, okay, and next one is what? The VF pages, etc. Okay, etc. Okay, it contains this type of information. It contains this type of information. Got it? This metadata repository contains all Apex classes, triggers, each and everything. Each and everything. Got it? Okay, so here this is what? This is a compiled Apex code. This is what? This is a compiled Apex code. Compiled Apex code. Got it? So this is what? Compiled Apex code. Okay, means what? Error free. Okay, I don't have any error here. I don't have any errors here. So when you don't have any errors, so then only that code will be saved. Then only that code will be saved. Then only that code will be saved. Right. Okay, so here I don't have any errors. Everything was stored here in this metadata repository. Right. So then what happened? So whenever you compile this code, and obviously, so this information will be stored. This information will be stored in the form of classes. In the form of classes. So we already discussed the first point. We already discussed a first point. See here, each and every business short logic should be implemented in the terms of classes and logic. Terms of what? Classes and logic. Okay, what was the program you here you return? What was the thing you here you executed? So that information will be stored. That information will be prepared like a table in the class. In the class. Got it? Okay, so when you created that class, and obviously you are getting one ID for that class. Okay, so class with the id. Okay, so class with id, so that information will be stored in my database. That information will be stored in my database, like that here, metadata, right? So whenever the user requested, so that information will be compiled, and that information will be stored here, metadata repository. Okay, so when the compiler will assign one ID, and compiler will assign the ID, so that ID should be passed to the runtime environment. That ID should be passed to which one? A runtime environment. Then what happened here? Runtime environment. What happened here? Runtime environment. Okay, so what was the program you executed? What was the program you executed? That program will be First it will be stored on a buffer memory. First it will be stored on where? A buffer memory. Okay, so here in this runtime, so we are having, so one more block is that is called the buffer memory. Buffer memory. Okay, what it does this buffer memory? What is this buffer memory? Buffer memory is nothing but what it stores. Okay, so what was the a present execution? It stores. So what was the a present execution information? Here, buffer memory. Got it. Buffer memory. Got it. Okay, so this runtime will be get the information from the metadata. Runtime will be get the information from the metadata. Why? Because here we already provided a class ID. We already provided what was the class ID. What was the class ID? So based on class ID, this metadata, sorry, this runtime wants some information. What's that program? What's that program? What was the data we are having? Okay, so what is the request? What is the end user request? Okay, so everything will be defined where? In this metadata repository. Metadata repository. This runtime will be get the information from metadata repository. What was the code? What were the classes? What was the code? What was the visual force pages? Everything. Everything. Okay, so everything will got here in this runtime. Okay, so then what I'm doing? So here the execution process will be handled. Okay, so here we are having execution. We are having what? Execution. Execution. Under the runtime, we are having what? Execution. Right. Okay, sometimes for example, okay, so the end user requested, sometimes the end user requested any DML operations, any DML operation. So that's why what happened, where we are storing the information in database, where we are storing this information in a database. If in the case user requested some record, one record, then what happened? Obviously, so we need to go the database. Obviously, we need to go the database. This is my database. Okay, so which database we are using in our Salesforce? Database.com. 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 Okay, so whenever you are executing something, okay, so sometimes we require database also. If the user requested database, and obviously we'll get that information from the database. Right, in execution process, sometimes will require some a database also, a record information. Right, so we can get that record information from the database, from the where? A database. Right, so here we are requesting the compiled apex code. What was the compiled apex code we are requesting here? To metadata. Right, and then after metadata repository will give the response. Okay, so what was the information? Okay, so we asked that response will be given by the metadata repository. Right, so that information stored will be in the buffer memory and it will be executed. Sometimes we require database also. Right, okay, so what was the execution process? What was the execution process? That execution process will be converted to the what? In which format? HTML format. In which format? HTML format. This is called the result. Right, HTML format means what? This is what result. Okay, so result in which format? HTML format. Why? Why my result in HTML format? So why because we are using on-demand applications. We are using what? On-demand applications. On-demand means what? Everything is available on browser only. Everything is available on browser only. So browser will shows only HTML pages. Got my point? So browser will shows only HTML pages. So that's the reason. Okay, so just we are getting this code. Okay, so just we're getting this output by HTML in the format what? HTML. Okay, so this is called the what? A response. Means what? Result. Right, so whenever in programmatic language, so whenever you return some code, first it will goes to the Apex compiler. Right, so in that code we are having any errors. Okay, this compiler will check only syntax errors, not logical, not logically. It will check what was the syntax the end user return. Okay, so it follows guidelines or not, right? So that type of information only this Apex compiler will be checked, right? So if you're having any errors, it will get back to you. Yes, you are having some errors, right? Okay, so for example, I don't have any errors. I don't have any errors. So then what happened? Obviously, so that information, what was the compiled code will be stored here under metadata repository. Under the metadata repository means what was the code written? Everything will be stored here metadata. Everything will be stored here metadata. Okay, so once the compilation was completed, automatically, so that will be built in the format of class with ID. Class, okay, associated with one ID. Okay, so that ID will be passed to the runtime error. That ID will be passed to the runtime error. So then what happened? The runtime will be a request to the metadata. Can you please show me what was the information we are having in this ID? What was the information we are having in this ID? Then this metadata repository will be shows what was the information we are having in this ID. Okay, so that information will be stored here in this buffer memory. That information will be stored here in this buffer memory, right? So then this runtime will be execute this program, right? So sometimes we required a database also. Why? Because a user requested any record. Then what happened? The record information available where? A database, right? Obviously we need to get the information from the database. So this execution process requests some the record information, and database will be give the response to the execution. Then the execution will be converted into HTML format. So why? Because I am using on-demand applications. So everything is available on a browser only, right? So browser will be understandable only HTML language, HTML format language. So that's the reason. So my application server itself converts the output in HTML format, and it will give the response to the end user the fraction of seconds. Got it? So like this, we are writing the code. See, so whenever you're writing the code, you are getting some error. Means what? That is a compiler. Compiler will check. So what was the syntax you written? What was the syntax you written? See, sometimes we are writing the program. There is no errors, but we are not meeting that logic. Means what? The compiler error. So didn't check what was the logic, right? It will check what was the syntax errors only. What was the syntax errors only? Got my point? So this is called the Apex execution architecture. How it will be executed? Apex program. How it will be executed? What was the flow? What was the flow? Got my point? Okay. So these are the some basic things you have to know. Okay. So about this Apex programming language. So first point, what? Apex language is the world first cloud computing. Okay, cloud-based language, and it is a object-oriented programming language, right? So every business logic should be implemented in terms of what? A classes and objects, class and objects, right? So we can implement the complex validation rules and transaction flows also, right? Each and every statement in our Apex programming language should be ends with semicolon, right? It's a tightly coupled programmatic language, tightly coupled programming language, right? So tightly coupled in what? So before using that variable, first we have to define. First we have to define, right? So we can build some custom business logics also. We can build some custom business logics also, right? So we can perform the DML operation. We can perform the DML operation, right? So what are the DML operations? Insert, update, delete, upset, and delete, right? We can retrieve the information from the Salesforce object, by using SOQL. By using what? SOQL, right? We can search the content. We can search the content. I don't know where that information was available. I don't know where that information was available. Okay, so in that condition, I can find out the information also. In that condition, I can find out the information also. Got it? Got it? Okay, so we already seen application architecture also, means how we are saving the information in my server. Okay, so no problem. Okay, so tomorrow we'll see what are the data types we are having and everything. Okay, so having any questions up to this point? Hello.
So fine, sir.
Okay. Okay. So we will meet tomorrow, same time. Thank you. Bye.